2, 1, and we are live with Chris Wildeman. What's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on, man? Burlap, thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Oh man, it's great to have you on. You're man, my best friend. Thank you for joining the podcast, buddy.
Hey, man, I've been looking forward to this for some weeks now.
Hell yeah. So you just got back from Washington State, Oregon, doing some wine tasting, some wine exploration, right? Is that where you were?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just got back from the Willamette Valley up in Northwest Oregon, and then we traveled to Walla Walla in Washington, which Walla Walla technically spans across Oregon and Washington. But the vineyards that we went to were within the Washington state. But beautiful scenery out there, man. It was honestly, it's been a while since I've gone anywhere because of COVID. It's nice to get on a plane again and travel.
Yeah, that's great, dude. I'm so glad you got to do that. I've been impressed by your ability to pick up knowledge about wine and even just pass the test a couple of years ago. What's the certification again?
Yeah, so it's been a few years. I went through CSW, which is a certified specialist in wine, and I've thought about going through the certified wine educator program, which is a step up from that. But I'm actually thinking I might go towards my WSET diploma, which is level 4. It's a kind of an undertaking, but it's kind of a goal that I have over the next couple of years. So that's something I want to kind of study for. So
nice. So in case people don't know, this is a podcast about work ethic, motivation, work styles, even personal and professional development. Today I wanted to talk to you a lot about your experience with wine, being the heir of a liquor store, right? Not the sexiest, career path. Your dad owns one liquor store, but you've taken it and grown it and had this amazing group of people in Indianapolis and beyond come to you for your knowledge of wine. And I wanted to talk to you about that, how you built that group of people, how you built your wine sales at Sobro Spirits there on 52nd Street between College and Keystone, right?
Yeah, definitely melting pot of an area.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, man. So,
absolutely.
I'd love to kick it back like 6-7 years, man. We're leaving IU, class of 2012. You're like, what the hell do I do with my life? Do I go into this path or do I do journalism? Do I take on the family business? Like, what went through your mind at that point? Can you maybe talk briefly about that, and then talk about Glazer specifically, the distributor?
So about 10 years ago, we were it's crazy to think, but about 10 years ago, we were preparing to graduate college and go into a career. And I was a journalism major, focusing on public relations, which is more the business side of things. And while I enjoyed the journalism school and my major, I just didn't think that was the path that I wanted to go in. I saw myself more in sales, more in something a little more business oriented. And I actually, the summer before our senior year, which was the summer of 2011, I did a little internship, I guess, with my dad at the store, and just kind of basically did some work for him over the summer. And he kind of took me through how he runs the business and the different facets of it. And I was really interested in how intricate running a liquor store actually is.
Yeah.
It's one of those businesses that can be super simple or it can be very in depth, and you make it what you want, and you can kind of skim by or you can be very in depth with it. And so I knew by about our senior year that that's where I wanted to end up. But I wanted to get a little bit of industry experience, and that's why I went to Glazers, and which is a wholesaler in Indianapolis. It actually used to be called Olinger, but they changed it. They were bought out by Glazers, which is a bigger company. And I did grocery chain sales for a little over a year, where basically it was an entry level blue collar sales route. I was covering Bloomington, basically taking orders, building displays, stuffing their shelves with wine and liquor. It's not a glorious job.
Yeah.
The pay wasn't too bad for what I was doing cerebrally, but I knew that long term, and nobody really wants to stay in grocery. Actually, my hopes were to either go on premise or to be a retail, like on premise or off premise retail rep. in package stores and or box chains. But make a long story short, the store was doing really well at that point, and it was almost to the point where dad was a little overwhelmed and he needed some full-time help outside of what he had. And so that's kind of when I decided to jump on.
Yeah, good for you, man. I think part of this, talking about the journey between like not success and having success, is owning your ability to say, my mind isn't where it has to be right now. Like I'm anxious, or I'm really struggling with trauma that I used to have. And I remember that at that time when you were at Glazers, you were struggling with that stuff. And I'd love to hear more about like what helped you get through that when you knew that you were unhappy in that role. What helped you understand that there's something better out there, or help you realize this isn't for me? And go into that a little bit with the mind stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's most of my close friends that know me know that I definitely struggle with anxiety and depression. Know me very well. That actually may be a huge surprise, because I'm always typically a very happy, extroverted, chatty person. But I do struggle with it immensely, and I was going through a tough time in my life. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I was interested in the family business, but to be honest with you, really what took me to the store was the fact that the store was doing well. I wasn't super stoked with what I was doing in wholesale, and I essentially to be a part of that business and essentially take pride in putting my dad into semi-retirement. But about a year or two in, I realized that, to be honest, essentially general managing that store wasn't necessarily what I knew was going to make me happy. And really what kind of turned the tides was the fact that I found wine, and I became what I felt a student of something that I never really was before. Because you know how I was in, high school, B student. I mean, not bad, but I was never really a true scholar. And wine really allowed me to embrace something in an educational forum.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating. Like the ability to take a subject and immerse yourself in it and almost get lost in the work of tasting wine, of this, I know that this varietal comes from this area of the world now. Like building that palette, what must have been awesome during that, looking back at that time, like learning, oh shit, like I got this many right out of 10. Like I'm really improving on my wine tasting abilities, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember I used to go to tastings, back in 2015 really was when I started 2015 was really when I started getting into wine. I was about 24, 25. And the wine was much of an integral part of our business at the time. It was maybe 6-7% of our revenue. And I remember that I remember realizing, hey, I'm kind of getting into this. This is something I can grow because I'm working on a lower number. We weren't a huge wine market, so it wasn't like I was going to buy wine for a retail store that, did, X $1 million business, and I had to walk the walk and talk the talk. Like I could build it up from the bottom, which is kind of how I built my knowledge from the bottom. So the business sales and my my educational level, they kind of grew together. And I remember I used to go to tastings at venues around the city, and oh man, I knew nothing. I couldn't hardly pronounce anything. It was kind of embarrassing, but I just threw myself into it and just embraced it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, really, really proud of you, buddy, especially, after the Glazers experience and just like trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. Anyone that's an entrepreneur or owns a business or wants to start and own something, like we've all been there in that self-doubt or anxious phase. And I think it makes it all the more sweeter when we can get to that point where we own or we master a certain craft, and it's all like hard labor, hard work, no handicaps, it makes it that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, when they think of owning a liquor store or buying for a liquor store or doing, whatever, or a wine shop or spirit store, whatever you call it, they think that, you kind of sit around a round table all day, you meet with reps and you drink wine and you tell stories and then you go. While there certainly is a little bit of that in the job description, if I sat around all day, tasted wine, and just kind of shot the shit with people, I wouldn't sell much, and therefore I wouldn't make much. And then, you'd start thinking, hey, is this worth it? So like you said, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of physical work. I I feel that, the more I work, typically the better I do. But, obviously you got to cap it at a certain amount because you don't want to overwork yourself. But
Yeah.
everybody has a different mentality on how much you should or shouldn't work. There's a wide range of opinions on that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you had to sacrifice. I mean, when we were early 20s, you simply couldn't go to like the same events everyone else went to on Saturday and
Yeah.
Sundays, and because you're like, hey man, I got to work. This is what I'm
Yeah.
doing. Like I'm doing the liquor store thing, and that also takes sacrifice to say no to people when you actually do
Yeah.
want to go to things, And like I feel like now you've gotten to the point where you're able to build the
Oh
schedule
yeah.
how you want to.
Oh my
But
gosh.
that's also
Yeah.
commendable to have that sacrifice.
Yeah. I mean, while I still probably work 80% of Saturdays, I am maybe more, I don't know, 85%. I can pretty much I make my own schedule as I see fit, which I am so blessed. I mean, this is my ninth. I'm now in my ninth year, believe it or not. So I've been there a little over 8 years. But yeah, in the early going, I mean, I sat down with Dad, and this is when I was exiting Glazers, coming in with him, and he was just like, "Hey, this is not a 9 to 5. This is not Monday through Friday. You're gonna have some weeks where you work Monday through Friday. You're gonna have some 9 to 5 days, but you know, you've this is weekends, holidays, some evenings, are you okay with that? And of course, yeah, I'm excited, let's go. But, in the first few years, yeah, it was tough to get away. But, and I had some frustrations because I saw, a disparity between what I was doing and then maybe what some other people were doing. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I went to work. I had a great opportunity given to me at the store, so it was mine to work for, you can't build anything overnight. And looking back on it, I realize how much that hard work paid off because um, while I still believe that, you know, I think people should grind to a certain degree in their whole career because there's always more you can achieve, but it's a little more on auto. And I'm very happy with where I'm at.
Yeah. Try to go back a few years, maybe like 6, 7 years ago instead of 10, and think about maybe like a Monday or Tuesday morning when you're in the storeroom, like, this is what I'm doing, really. Like, I'm really moving these boxes around, like, and then
Yeah.
transitioning to wine, and then
Yeah.
talk about kind of the pain of what am I going to do here versus the joy of getting the CSW, right? And then start talking
Yeah.
about growing that. How do you start growing a list of wine connoisseurs in Indy, and how do you
Oh man, you face plan a lot. I used to spend an hour or two on one email at night at home, uh, you know, trying to craft, a journalistic marketing tool to get someone to buy a wine that I had on a ridiculously great sale that if I had a good audience, it would just get snatched up like that. But I just didn't have a base, right? So I tried to sell wine a lot quicker than I was able to initially.
okay.
Um, in the very early going, yeah, it was stocking shelves, running the register, back stock. I mean, stuff that has to be done and stuff that all of us at the store still do to this day. But that was a little bit more. I mean, I started truly, I mean, kind of as a retail clerk, and I quickly realized that, not that I was overqualified or anything for that, but it's a family business, and you want to obviously make yourself and your family proud. And so, I when I realized that I wanted to be in a wine and that I wanted to sell wine, I realized, shit, I don't really have that much of a base right now. So it was blue collar, old school, just I mean, I wasn't working 12 hours a day necessarily days, maybe around the holidays, but it was just being in there 10, 11 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week, sometimes more.
Wow.
And, working the floor, there's on time, there's a lot of hustle bustle, and it's
Yeah.
just, writing down people's names. I had, looks like my internet connection's unstable. Hopefully it's better.
Okay, I
So,
can hear you fine if you want to just
hey,
keep
we're good
going.
now. We're good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, it's just one of those things where it was just about that getting customer in, customer out. Like, I would keep track of how many new people I would sign up on my email list every day. I would keep track of every time I met a customer. I would try to send them an email. Hey, it's nice to meet you. Just
Wow.
really small, just
Uh-huh.
grassroots stuff like that. That like a little bit of an arduous task, at the time, but it really did pay off. The stuff that used to probably be probably that was the toughest was I used to do a lot of in-home tastings because I have this customer, they want to have a party for 15 or 20 of their friends. This is a perfect way for me to network. I didn't charge them anything. I even paid for the wines, either myself or the store would pay for it. And some nights I would network and meet a few good customers, and some nights I'd be there for from 5 p.m. to midnight, and I really didn't do a whole lot. So I had some long days, and at one point I started thinking to myself, is this really worth it? Should I just kind of look to something else? And I think that the biggest key to my success is being able to track my progress.
Okay.
I think anybody out there, you have a good day, you have a bad week, you have a bad week, you have a good week, and it goes back and forth, and it's kind of like a teeter-totter. And depending on where your mind is, depending on where you are at the time, you might think, man, have I really made any am I really being successful? Have I made any progress? The nice thing about working at the store is I can see the sales every day. I see my wine sales every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, and I know exactly where I am, up, down to the 10th% at any given time. And while that's not necessarily healthy to monitor on a daily basis, to me, that is the reward I need to keep pushing forward.
Amazing. What is an in-home wine tasting? Their house, or like, what's that mean?
Normally I would travel and I would bring 8 to 12 wines. I would print out tech sheets of food pairings, that kind of thing. And then I would talk about the wine. Normally I would hang in the evening because I wanted to get to know these people and I wanted their business. It wasn't about selling wine that night. It wasn't about, I'll give you $100 to do this tasting. Well, over 6 hours, that's $16 an hour. Wow. It wasn't about that. You know what I mean? So, but that I stopped doing that when I started using email marketing through Constant Contact, which is not revolutionary. It's pretty simple stuff. But when I started seeing responding to those emails, I would send out an email and on a Chardonnay that I was selling for $60 a case, so $5 a bottle, that was normally $15 a bottle, and I'd maybe sell 6 cases. And back then that was like, oh my god, I just sold $360 a wine, and I made some pretty good money on it because I bought it closeout. Oh man, I'm feeling good. I started having events in our back room through Eventbrite, and the good thing was I would get new people in our store.
Great.
The bad part of it is you'd bring in the whole neighborhood and half the room really didn't care about anything of buying. They just wanted to taste. But I gained a lot of new customers that way using Eventbrite, and that started building my email list, because everybody that walked through that door to come these kind of sales sometimes will be on our emails and they won't be through an event, so you need to sign up. And that just started building it.
Great.
And then it's just been a slow process over the last years. But again, 1,000% growth overnight is too much to sustain. So I think it's better that way.
Yeah. So a couple of things I'm hearing are that, you had to stay persistent. You had to monitor your progress. Even on slow days, you're looking at that. I mean, first of all, amazing you can go 10th of a percent. Like I look back, I'm thinking Chris, finite, hacking.
Oh yeah.
Hacking finite math test.
At any given point, I know, I sold $80,000 last month. If I sell 90,000, that's 11.1% increase. Like, it's just little things like that that drive me to do that. But you can't get down on yourself. Like, if you don't beat last year's month, because there could have been, an interesting situation that will be hard to replicate, and that's my issue, is not getting down on yourself when you start to see things flatten out. Because the way I look at it, if my increases start to flatten off a little bit, it's only going to make me a better retailer. I'll find a different, a new way, to sell wine. So
yeah, amazing, man. I'd love to kick it over to another topic in a second, but
a
few more here on wine in the store. So
Absolutely.
What are the metrics that you track most commonly? Is it net revenue? Is it, what margins on certain types of wine? Is it number of people in your email list? I'd love to maybe throw out some hard numbers here.
Yeah, everything. So email list. I think right now I sent, and it's my email list is probably not nearly as big as some other, larger retailers. We are one store. The way we operate, we're more like 3 to 5 stores, just because each department's like its own. Um, we probably do the volume of 3 to 5 stores, but yeah, I mean, as far as being one store, obviously it's not historic numbers, but I want to say I think I've got about I think I send my emails out to about 2,500 people. My open rate typically is between 20 and 35%. So as far
Wow.
as like my wine world, I try to tracks like use certain metrics, and I definitely look at open rates.
Got it.
um, Back in December. I have about 100 and I think 35 people now. I had a little. The wine club's an interesting thing, and I don't want to go haywire and digress. But the wine club has been successful, and I have some people that most of the people in there are great customers, and they're really taking the whole club. But it's really my daily. That's where some of my best deals are, because sometimes I don't have enough product, for a wine
Yeah.
club, or maybe I don't have enough in my wine club to do what I need to do. So, um, but I am always a wine club. And I think the biggest thing is each email that I send out with for a particular wine. I know to the dollar how much I sold. I know when I sent it out. I know how quickly it sold out. So I look at trends. I look at what was the price point of that wine.
Okay.
And I don't send 2 emails out in a row with 2 Chardonnays at $12. I try to mix it up and um, keep it varied. And then as far as the like sales and revenue, each quarter or each year, I kind of like, one year I may work on margins, and I really may work on trying to increase margins by 1% or 2. Maybe not worry about sales a ton, but just increase margin. So then the next year I work on sales, because I've already
Sure.
kind of got the margins there a little bit. So it's
Yeah.
just kind of blocks.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean, don't say, the number, but maybe talk more about percentages. What percent, when you adopted the wine business, was the store doing in total sales, of all the liquor and wine and beer the store sells? What percentage
yeah,
was wine, and what is it now?
yeah. So when we started, it was about, I think, 6 or 7% wine, and then of revenue, it was probably 8%, because wine's margins are a little bit healthier. Now the sales, they hover between 20 and 22%, but the revenue is
Wow.
probably closer to a quarter. Now,
Congrats,
wine
man.
is still technically third to beer and liquor, but if you look at where we are in the essence of a liquor store, unless you're a fine wine shop, it's really hard for wine to be like the bulk of your sales. And since I started at the store, our sales have, I mean, they've pretty much, well, I don't want to say an
Just say
exact.
it. Just say
I
it.
mean, they've over doubled since I've started our sales in general, like the store sales. So even though the wine has grown it's multiplied by 7 since I started, the overall sales have gone. So I want wine to be as high of a percentage as possible, because I know that, I feel like, oh yeah, I'm making progress. It is, at the end of the day, it's about the whole store, and, just seeing the store grow as much as it has. It's cool that both entities have grown,
Yeah.
both the wine and the store.
I mean, stop, man. You got to just give yourself a pat on the back there, and it's not about what other people's stores might do. You literally go from 6% to 25% of all sales at the store. Think about that. Since you started, you more than doubled your family business revenue.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah. I mean, and we have a lot of great people. Obviously, there's a lot of, well, a lot of key parts, but I do feel very fortunate to be, one of the integral parts of the business. And like I said, it's pretty special to be able, to say that you work with your dad, for your dad, and for a family business.
Hell yeah, man. That's it's
So
inspiring,
yeah.
buddy. I'm glad that you can share that with us, and just like, have had the road and journey that you've had to get where you are now. It has to feel just amazing.
Yeah. And for anybody out says, oh, I like wine, I want to learn wine. Well, if I can learn it, you can learn it. A lot of people make wine a very exclusive entity, and it's not. It's fermented grape juice. People grow grapes, harvest them, they make the wine, which is more of a technical process, and then they do things to it and bottle it. And at the end of the day, if you're into wine and you want to know more, just dive in. Don't be afraid that you're not smart enough, because trust me, you are.
Good for you, man. I like how you kind of dumb it down for the masses. I like that.
Yeah,
And I mean,
absolutely.
that's about yourself. You're not the most technically savvy person either.
No.
An email list to know your open rate at 25%. I mean, I do tech sales, and for anyone in the technology space, 25% is actually a pretty good open rate. 2,500 people is nothing to, turn your nose up at. Congrats on building that list too.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it feels good. Everybody knows me. For a 31-year-old, I'm not exactly the most technically inclined, technology inclined person. I'd say I'm a 3 out of 10 at best. But hey, I think that's with anything, and I think you would agree. As long as you know how to work the technology you need to do your job, that's the biggest thing. I know how to work Excel in a very basic sense so that I can organize my business. But no, I'm not gonna be the king of access or K201 type stuff. So
and I even love the idea of arithmetic, multiplication. Like, you don't need to know algorithms or cosine X, whatever that BS is. I mean, it's literally like what's 11% of 2,500. You could just rattle that out. It's like you got that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I might have almost flunked pre-cal and calc, but when it comes to arithmetic, that helps in my job, because I know if I can increase my margins by 0.8%, that'll generate X amount of gross profit, just assuming sales stay constant. It's like little things like that can make you a lot of money that you don't necessarily have to be at rocket science to figure out.
Yeah. So thank you for talking more about the liquor store, man. What I wanted to ask about next was, I know behind you is that Traeger, your grill. Tell me all about your grind of learning how to do great steaks and ribs and chicken on the grill, right? Like, you're a beast.
Man, when it comes to grilling, and I get this question a lot from friends, it really truly is, for me, it's about the grill. I love nice on the truly, by the way. I love it. The grill. So the Traeger is for those of you that aren't familiar, it is a pellet grill, meaning that there are actual wood pellets that feed into an auger that heat the grill like an oven. So it uses convection style heating. And it honestly is, to me, one of the easiest ways to grill. And I'll tell you why. So I don't know if any of you guys, obviously you've probably used propane. Propane to me is tough because if you have fatty meat, it'll flare. The meat burns, it dries out, it tastes like a meat biscuit, and it can be a little arduous. There are other grills like the Big Green Egg that are great grills. I love the Green Egg, but to me, there's more of a learning curve. And if you don't know what you're doing, because it's more charcoal, like I've had some really bad meals on the Green Egg. Nothing against it. I think it's just as good as the Traeger, just in a different way. Okay. The only bad thing about the Traeger is that you can't get it super high in heat. It's more 450 is about as high as you're going to get it. So if you'd like to sear a steak, it's a little tougher. But you really set it and forget it to a certain extent, as long as you know what temperatures to cook the meats, how to marinate it, season it. And growing up, our family, my dad was the griller. My mom was more of the kitchen cook. They both cooked. They pretty much alternated. And so I just would watch my dad as a kid, and, we'd do like baby back ribs or burgers or brats or pork chops, steaks, that kind of thing. So I always took stock in what he did. And then in my early 20s, he got a Traeger, and that's when I was just like, I need one of these right now.
Yeah. So what makes it different is the fact there's like these embers or something that are in, what'd you call it?
Yeah, they're little wood pellets, and they feed through an auger, and it basically it heats like convection like an oven. So there's no direct flame, so it doesn't dry out the meat. So like, let's say you like your burgers well done, or sorry, medium rare. accidentally cook it well done. This is what happened the first time my dad and I cooked a burger. I remember we took them off his Traeger, we cut into them, they're well done. We're both like, we bit into the burger though, and we're both like, this burger is this good and it's well done. Okay, we can get on board with this,
Yeah.
So it, getting that perfect cooked with beef isn't exactly, in my opinion, it's not as important as I think you have a little bit more, you have more wiggle room and room for error with the Traeger.
I mean, I have a propane outside and it does the job, but I know what you're saying about it. It makes it kind of dry. If you're
I remember cooking on that propane.
If you're saying that the Traeger is kind of like a convection oven, why not just put it in the oven? Like, do you still get that kind of the smoky taste that a grill gives?
Great question, and that's kind of the signature setting of the Traeger. It is technically a smoke. It's a pellet grill with a smoker setting. So there's a smoker setting at 180 and 225, and that goes all the way up to well, they say 450, but mine only gets up to about 410, 425 at best. And so you can smoke it, and there is smoke at all different. From those pellets, you get smoke at all different temperatures. So and there's like 6 different like aromas, I guess, of the pellets. There's cherry, there's
Really?
there's oak, there's apple, there's pecan, there's all these different different variations of wood pellets. And so certain ones work better with certain meats. I don't really get too hell bent on that. I to me it's more about just cooking the meat right, but the pellets are fun. It's like salmon. You can smoke. I mean, smoked salmon is easy on that grill, and it's just something kind of cool and different.
Yeah, I know you swear up and down by the Traeger. Kyle's Happen Street a couple of weeks ago. It's like, hey man, like Chris has perfected like steaks on the grill. He goes, they taste like St. Elmo's, dude. Like you've crushed it.
Yeah, man. I remember one time our buddy Alex Miller came over and we had burgers. I think it was you, me, Kyle, and Miller. I thought he was gonna piss himself. He was so. I mean, excuse my language, but he was so into those burgers. He's like, dude, how did you do this? I was like, man, there's no flame to dry out the meat, and I didn't cook them high. I just let it cook, and they're just juicy. But no, I mean, yeah, Kyle and I are actually having a little steak and wine night tomorrow night, so that'll be fun.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, man, the grill really helps me out. I mean, yeah, like I know what I'm doing, but I'm really not. I'm no different than most people who like to grill. I have a good grill that helps me get to my destination. So
there you go, man. So the equipment matters in grilling, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
So how do you do a steak? Is it, I mean, I know I season it, sometimes marinate it if I want that taste. And I throw it on at the super high heat, 3-4 minutes, turn it over, maybe 2-3 minutes. If I like it, well, rare, and then I'll take it off. But I'd love to hear what your strategy is.
I mean, I've done steaks on a cast iron skillet before. I've done them on a charcoal grill, a gas grill. The way I do them in the Traeger is a little different. I'm not searing a steak and getting that char is not make or break for me. I actually like cooking it a little slower. I cover the steak in a little bit of olive oil, and then I like to throw the St. Elmo's all-purpose seasoning on it. It's my favorite seasoning. I use it for chicken, pork, salmon, beef. I mean, everything.
Really? Okay.
And then at that point, honestly, man, to me, it's just about getting it to that perfect temperature that you like. It just depends on the thickness of the steak. I eat gargantuan steaks that most people would probably think are disgusting. I regularly cook 40-ounce bone-in ribeyes that I eat over 2 or 3 meals. So my teenage years, I'd eaten the whole thing, but that's, I like to cook them a little bit lower, and I just like that the true, just authentic taste of the meat at the temperature desired.
Yeah, I know I like it rare or just medium rare. So having you said that you do it a little lower, maybe get that pink middle, right? How long is it in the olive oil and the foil?
Typically, maybe a couple hours, depending on how much time I have. I mean, sometimes I'll do it in the morning, and then so maybe 12 hours from the time I go to work to the time I get home, 10 or 12 hours. But sometimes I'll just marinate it, start up the grill, put it right on. I do think that it's a little more flavorful when you sit it out all day, or
And you'll choose a
marinated all day.
seasoning. You'll choose a seasoning like St. Elmo's that just can stand on its own, no pepper and salt, just the seasoning
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah, and sometimes I just do pepper and salt, and I always ask like whoever I have over for before they come over, and certain people have certain seasonings they like, so we just bring it over. And I'm just a firm believer of of whatever you like. But I will say, if you're into meat and you like ribeyes, I can't stress enough, the bone-in ribeye is in my opinion, the best cut. If you like fat, if you don't, get a fillet, or if you like a little fat, get a New York strip. But the bone, to me, the most tender part of the meat is closest to the bone.
Okay.
And it's for people out there that don't eat a lot of meat or vegetarians, they probably grimace at this, but to me, the best part of the bone-in ribeye is when you get to the bone, and you can take a knife and kind of like thinly slice off the meat off the bone. I'm telling you, the marbling, the meat quality, it's second to none. And honestly, I eat it like a baby back rib at the end, which say what you want, I think it's the best.
You said 40-ounce bone-in ribeye, huh?
Yeah, lately I've been eating some like 2.3, 2.4 pound like bone-in like big old tomahawk ribeyes from either Kincaid's or Fresh Market. So yeah, that's probably like 40 ounces. But I don't eat the whole thing, maybe half of it.
Do you swear up and down by going to a nice meat market, or can you get great cuts at Meijer or Kroger?
I really think it depends on not necessarily your income, because I mean,
it's your budget. How much do you want to spend at that meal?
How much do you want to spend, and how much is it a hobby of yours? How much emphasis do you put on, eating at home or grilling meat, that kind of thing? And if you put a decent amount of emphasis on it, I would go to the bare minimum. I'd go to somewhere like Fresh Market or a similar type grocery store, or Kincaid's, or, a Joe's up in Carmel. They do really good stuff. But you can get some good meat at Meijer. I've had some great baby backs from there. I mean, I typically like to shop a little more local. That's just me personally. Obviously, with my retail background, I like to shop local, but you will pay more. But it's kind of like I hate to. I mean, you could buy a pair of Skechers that are $40-$50, or you could buy some Air Maxes that are $150. I mean.
Yeah. So I like shoes. I'm a big sneakerhead. I love Nike.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah.
I truly believe that Nike and they make great shoes.
I've always liked Nike.
Don't think that Skechers is quite to the level of quality as a Nike, or if you get into hiking or a specific sport that a Hoka would for running. It's like, I think that there's something to be said for quality.
Hokas are great.
Gordon Ramsay.
I'm 5'10" of them.
Gordon Ramsay said it's all about the ingredients. You got to buy the freshest, best ingredients possible to have the best meal. But not everyone cares that much, right? They're just trying to look for a good meal, not a great one. That's
exactly.
I'm looking for that.
Right. If all you care about is just a steak for the best price, yeah, I would go to Meijer. I mean, and who am I to say that's not right? But if you're like, oh yeah, I'm into steak cuts, and I like Wagyu or something like that, well, you got to go to a specialty butcher.
Yeah. Okay. So last thing on grilling with salmon or any kind of fish or chicken, how do you augment the process to make those tender and juicy as opposed to dry?
Again, I mean, I know I sound like a broken record player, but to me, the Traeger's, the lack of direct flame to the protein is, I feel like the slower you cook it, the more tender and juicy it is. Like, you do a pork butt at 225 for X amount of hours, and is it 190, you take it off or whatnot. Chicken, typically, if you want the skin to be crispy, it's going to need a little bit more heat. My dad does really good chicken on a charcoal grill, and it makes the chicken really crispy. I don't do so well on charcoal grills, to be honest with you. I'm much better on a Traeger or a propane, but yeah, I like to cook. If I'm cooking chicken, I like to cook it 250 and cook it for as long as it takes to get to the internal temperature.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm gonna try some of those tips this week, and I'll report back how it is. I'm still
you can always call you can always call me or text me with any questions on that. Not that I know everything, but
yeah. So what's really cool to me is hearing you kind of blend multiple crafts together. When you put your wine list out, you had to use journalism skills, right? When you have your
Yeah.
tastings, or say you have friends over, you're able to know what to pair with food, right? Like with a steak, you're going to use or have a dark red as opposed to a sweet white, right? Like
Right.
there's,
Yeah.
there's some very common knowledge on that, but
Mhm.
maybe talk for a couple minutes about pairing, or some of the more maybe technical aspects of wine. I like the Syrahs, the Cabs, the Malbec, the really tannic, kind of sits on your tongue, heavy reds.
Mhm.
But what am I missing out on? What are some things that someone that likes chicken might put with white wine? Talk a little bit more about pairing.
Yeah, so I mean, a heavier white protein like chicken, first and foremost, I would pair with a fuller bodied white wine, maybe a Chardonnay, either from for Burgundy. Chardonnays tend to be heavier whites. If you like white wine, I would something like chicken, I would go a little bit of a heavier white. Typically, sometimes you kind of want to match the size of the wine with the size of the dish. You don't want to overpower a wine or a food for that matter. You don't want one to be completely gobbling up the other. But at the end of the day, I will say first and foremost, and I'm not a pairing expert. I have good, solid general knowledge. Not a 5-star sommelier in a restaurant, because obviously that's not my trade. But the biggest thing is to not overthink it. If you like the way something tastes, with a food, maybe not stop there and go, okay, this is why I'm going to drink this wine with this food, but why do you like it? And if you can figure out why you like it, find other combinations of things. Like, I urge people to pair a lot of European wines with food, because generally speaking, European wines are higher in acidity.
Got it.
And therefore they are a little more refreshing, and they bring out the flavor in food. There are big, bold, New World styles of wine that go well with food, like a ribeye. Oh man, a big, bold Napa Cab, or a luscious Petite Syrah, or something. A really heavy wine, um, with thick, big tannin structure is going to cut the fat. So that's like a nice marriage.
Interesting.
If you like spicy food, sweetness and heat are a match made in heaven. So I eat a lot of Thai food. That I like spicy food, and I drink medium sweet to sweet Riesling with it. And a lot of people go, Riesling? I thought you were a knowledgeable wine guy. Like, what are you doing drinking sweet Riesling? That's amateur hour. Not really. I mean, Riesling is is one of the best foods for best wines for hot food, and it's also one of the most versatile grape varietals in the world. You can get a Riesling that is bone dry, and then a dessert sweet, so but yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, also, if it grows with it, it goes with it. So if you look at Spain, for example, and you're having certain kind of tapas, a Tempranillo from Rioja might be a good pairing. The classic spaghetti and meatballs, like do a Chianti Classico with that. Sangiovese is the highest acid red grape out there, at least as far as I'm concerned. And acidity pairs really well with food. So I think it's more about taking a few key principles that work for you, and then just and going with it. A lot of people, I think, I have a few customers that I God love them, but they put way too much stock in food and wine pairing, and it's sometimes tough for me to help them, because they're so into it that it kind of it's pretty deep, it's and another thing, if you are cooking something that has a certain sauce or seasoning, that is as much, if not more important than the actual protein or carbohydrate itself.
Got it. Okay.
So you would, like, let's take a burger with jalapenos and buffalo sauce. You would pair with a different wine than a burger with, a ton of barbecue sauce and pulled. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It just, I mean, the sauce matters, right? It's like, it's obviously a lot of the flavor of the meal. So the flavor of the wine will shift with that.
Yeah.
But I love that if it grows together, it goes together. When you have a Spanish meal, have a Rioja, right? If you're going to have spaghetti or whatever, have an Italian wine. I like the more traditional old world kind of Europeans with the, just the really, really thick grape that kind of sits in your tongue. My favorite.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah, dude.
absolutely, man. And I can't believe I forgot this. If you don't know what to pair with a meal, champagne. Doesn't have to
Really?
be from Champagne. It could be, a $10 cava from Spain. Sparkling wine goes with everything. So if you're ever not sure what to pair with it, at least have a bubbly on the table and you can't go wrong.
Nice. That's kind of like a little cheat that no one knew but
Yeah.
you. So everyone.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people, in the wine world would agree, but I mean, like, I think about it as a kid, you drank pop, we drank Coke or Sprite with everything. It tasted great.
Yeah,
Carbonation, sparkling wine, it really does go with everything. So.
for sure, man. Well, I do want to wrap it up here in a few minutes. One thing I do on every podcast is ask a question of some sort. For you,
I know this is going.
I mean, we can always do a fuck, marry, kill, or like.
No, do a few of them. Do whatever you want to do. Throw it at me.
Let's keep it, on the topic for now. So, what's your favorite region of the world for wine?
Oh, 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 it's tough. Oh my God, that's tough. Favorite region in the world for wine. No matter what how I answer, I'll probably regret. I'll regret it. So because there's just so much out there, and there's so much that I really haven't delved into as much as I'd like. But for where I am right now, the Northern Rhone Syrah from the Northern Rhone in France, Côte Rôtie, Grenache, Hermitage, Gros Hermitage. The wines are typically pretty expensive, but I feel Syrah is it's probably one of my top 5 favorite grape varietals in the world for red wine. I would say Syrah is in my top 5, and there's a lot of grapes out there. I know 5 sounds kind of like a lot, but I'm a huge fan of Syrah from all areas of the world, but the Northern Rhone has this gamey, hedonistic, just absolutely just lovely essence to it that I really, really like. And it goes really well with steak, lamb, game, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I love I think with the kind of the classic wine connoisseur or sommelier doing the swirling and the sniffing and then the spitting back out, like it's a little ridiculous.
Half of it's bullshit, half of it's serious, and half of it's just for show. I mean, I try to keep my adjectives to a handful, just because after that it gets to be a little bit much.
How do you, when you first taste a wine, what comes to your mind? Do you think of the varietal? Do you think of the area of the world? Kind of what order do you go in to name, this is what I'm drinking right now?
Well, so you're going to look at the wine. So you've got sight. If the wine is lighter in color, it's typically either going to be older or lighter bodied, not always, but that's typically a sign. If there's a rim variation if it's a red wine and there's rim variation between the outer edge and then the core, that typically shows that the wine's going to be older, and or it could be from potentially the old world. Wines that are really, really deep in color tend to probably be younger wines, maybe possibly from the New World. And then from there you go to the nose. So you smell the wine. You're looking for, to me, I look, and this is just generalities, and for someone in my position, I'm very average at blind tasting, but I do it somewhat often. I look, is this more fruit driven or is this more earth driven?
Okay.
If it's more fruit driven, I start going to the New World, South America, North America, New Zealand, Australia. I start planning, okay, what are the possibilities? If it's more earth driven, I go look more to and from there, you just start looking at possible grape varietals.
Okay.
And then, but sometimes it's really not easy. And you may be between 2 regions that one could be old world, one could be new world. I mean, typically you want to get on one side of the tracks and then
go. I mean, Napa could have a cab, and then France could have a cab, right?
Perfect. So Bordeaux, that's why this is digressing a little bit, but I tell people, don't exactly say, oh, I just want cab. Okay, you like cabs from Napa. Maybe you need to try another grape from Napa, Merlot or Petit Syrah or what have you, because a Cabernet from Napa is going to be much different than a Cabernet from Bordeaux, where Bordeaux's are going to be much earthier, dustier. They're going to be much more rustic. Although the grape varietals still share commonalities, they're two different styles of Cabernet.
Thanks, dude. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a fuck, marry, kill. Wine, beer, liquor. What do you do? You got to kill one. Do you kill G&T or Miller Lite? How do you ever go without red wine again?
Do I got to do it in any order?
No, I mean, whatever you want, but you got to choose fuck, marry, kill, one of those three.
I'm gonna marry wine for obvious reasons. I want to be with wine, the rest of my life. I am probably going. I'm probably gonna fuck beer. I'm probably gonna kill liquor. I like liquor. I love G&Ts. I love bourbon, but I drink probably 80% wine. No, 70% wine, 25% beer, and then 5% liquor. So liquor's that's my FMK, so to speak.
For those of us that love boozing, I mean, it's a tough question because there's like each one is called for at a different time. Like if I'm at, I'm at a wedding party, I'm going to go with my G&T or, vodka with lemon or something. Like every day watching stupid TV with my girlfriend, I'm doing wine, like wine is my go-to every night. And then if I'm watching the race or like watching a game with the boys, I'm slugging like Miller Lights, dude.
Slugging brews. Drinking beers and shooting stairs.
Like I wouldn't want to be doing wine all night with the boys getting rowdy. Like that's just not the scene, right? But
you'll wake up with the worst hangover of your life.
I do love wine, 1 or 2 glasses every I wouldn't say every other night or every night, but it's quite frequent. So
yeah, we'll keep it ambiguous.
Yeah, dude. Anyway, dude, thanks for coming on, man. This has been an awesome talk. Love getting into your mind as it relates to kind of business and, growing the liquor store, everything from your mindset to measuring things and the Traeger telling us how to grill. You're a man of many traits, Chris Wildeman.
Oh man. Yeah. I've always joked I have more hobbies than I have time for in my working career. I just need to be retired already.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I love what you're doing with this podcast, and I hope that you can continue to get people on, and maybe you can grow it into something where you could have repeat people on and talk about different things. Maybe certain segments or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just enjoying creating content right now. Talking to my people in my life about what they know best, and we'll get you on again. We'll talk about Freddie Gibbs and camping and whatever the hell else we do.
Camping in Brookville.
Yeah,
riding the bus.
Riding the bus. Anyway, thanks for coming on, dude. I'll talk to you soon.
Right on, brother. We'll see you later, man.
See ya. Bye.
All right, see you, bud.